You know, a few people have been saying recently that my intros have been getting quicker. Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia here, welcome back to Overwatch. So, it's time for another Meta Murmurs. We haven't done a Meta Murmurs in quite a while. We did the patch preview ahead of the Breakable Barriers patch, but we haven't had a Meta Murmurs since before the World Cup. And the meta has kind of ironed itself out, but there's a lot of variety in the meta right now, which is actually a good place to be. So, we've also got the first 2 weeks of Breakable Barriers, which has given us our first semi-pro insight into what people believe the meta is right now. Again, I don't think we're going to see a proper meta kind of display itself until early next year, simply because we're going to see contenders, the seeding tournament. I think that'll be a big teller, and then obviously going into Overwatch League in February, someone will be running something, and that will probably be the majority of what people are running. But we've seen a lot on ladder. We've seen a lot of variety. Reinhardt's had a really quite a big comeback. We've seen a lot of DPS have different comebacks because of obviously less barriers. Orisa is still very, very strong and arguably the best tank in the game. The changes to Sigma though have made him less of an essential item in your comp, and we've seen that role being taken up by some other heroes, whether that be Reinhardt or Hammond even, just not D.Va basically. Not D.Va and not really Winston either. That's the two tank heroes that are really suffering at the moment. In terms of DPS, we know that Mei is dominating at the moment a lot. We're seeing also a lot of Hanzo and a lot of Reaper, but we already kind of knew that. And then there's a lot of variety in the support category. Unless you're on ladder, then you're kind of looking at a lot of Batiste. But there are three comps when you look at Breakable Barriers that have been dominating the scene. The original comp before, which was coming from before Breakable Barriers, which is basically, it's Orisa Sigma. You can call it GOATS 2.0. It plays in a very similar way. So Orisa Sigma, Mei, Reaper, Moira, and Lucio. And this was what we saw before Breakable Barriers. This time it's just the barriers are less effective, and it's given rise to more spam comps which are kind of killing those barriers. But again, they still feature the Orisa and the Sigma, but instead you're swapping in a Hanzo instead of the Reaper because you've got more long-range spam damage. Reaper likes to brawl, remember? And then you have in the support category a complete change-up. You have Batiste and Zen, obviously two very long-range damage dealers who can spam shields along with the Hanzo, the Mei, the Sigma, and the Orisa, and basically your shields aren't going to stay around for very long. But then we've had the emergence of a different comp, notably used by Yeetal's team in Breakable Barriers. And this is Orisa, but it's kind of a mashup of, like, I don't know, it's like this static mashup of what was the meta and what is new dive. So we've got Orisa, we've got Wrecking Ball, we've got Hanzo, we've got Pharah, we've got Mercy, and we've got Ana. And this is a really interesting comp, and they all have benefits and drawbacks, which are kind of meaning that all three are being played in Breakable Barriers at the moment, with no one able to really decide on what the best route is. So when you look at Orisa, Sigma, Mei, Reaper, Moira, Lucio, GOATS 2.0, the pre-Breakable Barriers meta, it's still very good with its sustain. You know, they've all got get out clauses. Mei and Reaper, we all know about the sustain, perhaps need to be nerfed. Moira is very good. Obviously, Lucio's got the ability to keep himself safe with his boop and that. And it's all about deathballing. It's just like GOATS, except you haven't got 3 tanks and 3 supports. You know, it's basically GOATS 2.0. It's all about deathballing. And this is countered very well when you get a lot of spam damage now because of the nerfed barriers. And this is why we've seen this Orisa, Sigma, Hanzo, Mei, Batiste, JNATHYN comp kind of come in. And this is just about breaking those barriers and getting the picks. And Hanzo is obviously phenomenal at doing that. Zen is also very good at doing that. And Batiste is very good at not only getting picks and spamming barriers down, but protecting the Zen. And that is obviously crucial because JNATHYN is so squishy that if he was vulnerable, the teams would just run dive against it and just eliminate the Zen and automatically get a one-man up fight. So then you have this kind of dive hybrid that Yeetal and some teams have been playing, and it's very interesting. So again, it relies on the spam, And it's the only kind of comp we've seen recently that doesn't really include Mei at the high level. And it's got the Hanzo and the Pharah for the spam, right? Of course, if you're running a Pharah, you're going to run a Mercy because you're going to run Pharmacy. Ana has the long range healing. And when you look at it going up against some of the comps that we've been seeing, the 2 comps I've already mentioned, what are they going to do about the Ana? Because you're going to want to dive an Ana, right? You've got nothing to dive with. So the Ana's kind of got free reign to heal and damage when she needs to. Hammond goes in on the dive, trying to get the pick with the Pharah. And then you've got Orisa with the Hanzo, spamming damage down. And it's kind of like this dive spam hybrid that actually is seeing a rather high amount of success in breakable barriers at the moment. And so it might develop into a meta further down the line. Again, we don't know what higher up teams are playing. We don't know what the top contenders teams are playing right now, like British Hurricane, like Atlanta Academy and people like that. We don't know what they're running. We don't know what Overwatch League teams are running in their scrims right now. So it's a kind of a shot in the dark, if you see what I mean. But this is what we are seeing during breakable barriers. And notably, some things coming out of contenders and open division can make a massive impact on the meta. Remember that with GOATs. And remember it also with Clockwork Vendetta not so long ago. So things can make a massive difference coming from the lower end of Overwatch esports. So this is why we look at these comps sometimes. In terms of ladder, any of these heroes are going to do quite well right now in the right scenarios. The thing is, when you're running, say, a Pharmacy into the pre-breakable barriers comp, so Orisa, Sigma, Mei, Reaper, Moira, Lucio, we need names for these comps. Should I just call it GOATs 2.0? When you're running a Pharmacy into that, the Pharah is going to struggle to get things done because she just doesn't output enough damage to get the pick. And that's what that new comp relies on. The Hammond, the Hanzo, the Pharah, it's about getting the pick. And Orisa is kind of the sustain with the Ana, and the Mercy is damage boosting the Pharah for the pick as well. So if you can't get that pick because the sustain of the comp is so massive, like the GOATs 2.0 comp is, then that comp is not going to be effective. But against the things like Orisa, Sigma, Hanzo, Mei, Batiste, Zenyatta, the spam comp, it's very good because spam is not so effective. These heroes in the kind of like dive hybrid comp are much more spread out. You're all over the place with it, and you haven't just got one death ball of a comp to spam into, which is, you know, obviously to your advantage. So that's why we're seeing quite a switch up in breakable barriers of the meta right now, and no one's kind of settling on what to do. If take North America last week, for example, in the final we saw tier 3 subs, mostly Revival, and Sky Foxes take on each other in the final, and they were running the spam comps against each other a lot of the time. So again, there's a few teams picking up this dive hybrid, and it might turn out that this dive hybrid has a resurgence if people start to play this spam comp a lot. Again, it's kind of give and take, but then again, if we see this dive hybrid come along, then you might see the sustain of GOATs 2.0 come back. So again, it's kind of give and take right now. We haven't seen a concrete meta kind of just blow everything out of the water. Dive has not come back fully to just wipe everything out. Ryan Zarya hasn't come back to wipe everything out. There is no staple point of the meta right now. It's kind of you do what is effective in the right scenario. And that's kind of what Overwatch has always been about, right? If you're playing against Orisa, Sigma, Mei, Reaper, Moira, and Lucio, the sustain GOATs 2.0 comp, then you're going to play spam, because you're going to spam down the barriers. If you're playing against spam, you're going to play something more dynamic, like this dive hybrid, or perhaps even dive altogether. The problem with dive altogether is the Mei in the spam comp, because obviously you've got that CC to protect the back line. And Hanzo's damage output, as soon as you're frozen, you're dead, especially at the highest level. So that's why we haven't seen full dive come back. Winston doesn't do enough damage to get the pick quickly. D.Va is the worst tank in the game. without a doubt. In terms of the support line, Ana is good in certain situations, Mercy's good in certain... I mean, you look at the supports we've outlined here, or I've outlined here. Moira, Lucio, Baptiste, Zen, Mercy, Ana. Nearly the whole support line is available to use right now, apart from Brigitte. Now, Brigitte, you can make Brigitte work on ladder in certain scenarios. If you've got, say, a Tracer or a Genji that you're up against. Genji has seen a bit of a resurgence because of his buff, but I don't think it's enough to bring him into the high echelons of the meta. But again, it's workable on ladder in the right scenarios. This is very much how everyone is talking right now. It's very much how the meta is right now. You've got to counterpick right now. Otherwise, you could brain dead run a comp into another team and it's never going to work if you don't counterpick what they're playing against you. It's as simple as that. And it can also be very map based as well. So the meta is in perhaps the best place it's been in quite a long time. Unfortunately, I don't like to see like the dominance of Mei, for example. I don't think that's a good look for the game in terms of CC and enjoyability of or enjoyable play. But in terms of variety, in terms of no concrete you must play this meta, in terms of just making a lot of different stuff work in a lot of different scenarios, the meta is in a very, very, very good place. And I think maybe it might change near the end of January, early February, when the Overwatch League comes back, and possibly another balance patch before the Overwatch League goes live. So enjoy it while it lasts, this varied comp, because I don't think it will be around for too much longer once the next balance patch comes around, and when we get the higher end of esports for Overwatch taking hold of the meta and saying, we're going to play this. But I'm going to leave it here for Meta Murmurs. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.